Hey everyone, welcome to episode 6 of Window Cleaning Reality Check. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about trad poles, aluminum versus carbon fiber. Now, when I say trad pole, in case you've been living under a rock for the last few years, a trad pole is any pole that you would use with traditional window cleaning tools. Now, traditionally, they were always made of aluminum. You could also get fiberglass, but aluminum probably 99% of the time. And here's a couple of popular brands. This is the Unger over here, Ettore over here. There's also the Garlic pole, Sorbo has a pole, Pull-X, all various forms of aluminum poles and plastic collars. And in the last few years, there's been this uprise in popularity of the carbon fiber trad poles. I'm going to show you a couple of those right now. So some of the ones that we've been carrying are the Gardner CLX trad pole. This actually isn't a carbon pole, it's a carbon composite. So what that means, it's a mixture of carbon and carbon fiber and fiberglass. And then we of course have the Legend poles that have been quite popular here at the window cleaning store. And we usually outfit them with Unger tips, or you can also get it with Ettore tips. So there's a couple there. We also have a new one coming down the line, should be out in a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. It's the Precision Trad. It's an interesting pole that I'll be doing a video on in a couple of weeks. Again, this is full carbon fiber. And so a lot of people would ask the question, why would you want to use a very expensive carbon fiber pole for traditional window cleaning versus aluminum? So we're going to go run through kind of a checklist on the pros and cons of aluminum versus carbon fiber. This is really going to be like a non-biased video, and that's why it's part of the Window Cleaning Reality Check series. I'm not trying to sell you one or the other. It's really, I'm going to tell you the facts about the two different styles, and it'll be up to you in the end to make up your mind. Okay, so for the first point, let's talk about cost difference. This is a bit of a no-brainer. Aluminum poles are going to be way cheaper than carbon fiber poles, partly because the material, aluminum, is much more readily available. Carbon poles are much more readily available. There's bigger demand for them. There always has been for decades. That kind of helps bring the cost way, way down. Whereas carbon fiber poles first started in the window cleaning industry as a water-fed pole and now in trad poles. Costs a lot more to make carbon fiber sections. The material itself costs a lot more. Most of them, almost all of them are made in China, so it's the cost of importing. There's all kinds of things that drive up the cost of a carbon fiber pole. So yes, obviously, aluminum cheap, carbon fiber more expensive. Next up is availability. Aluminum traditional window cleaning poles are sold everywhere. You can get them at all the big window cleaning supply houses all across North America and Europe, all Asia, everywhere. Anywhere you buy window cleaning supplies, you can find an aluminum window cleaning pole. As far as carbon fiber trad poles, it's a lot more scarce. You're going to find them obviously in the big window cleaning supply houses, and unless you live in a big city, you're probably not going to have quick, easy access to be able to just drive over and pick one up. So you have to order this online in most cases. Like I said, unless you live in a big city with a window cleaning supply house. Aluminum is going to be found anywhere, even the big box stores. If you're desperate and you need a pole, you can go to Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever, pick up something, help get you by. Won't be the same quality of aluminum pole as the main window cleaning supply houses sell, but it'll do the job. As for a weight difference, depending on what length poles we're comparing, it's not going to be huge. But in the case of an 18-foot 3-section Unger OptiLock pole versus this 4-section carbon fiber pole, this is the Precision trad pole, there's actually a 1-pound weight difference. The Unger aluminum 18-foot pole weighs about 3.3 pounds, and the the carbon fiber 4-section Precision pole actually only weighs 2.25 pounds. So just a little more than a pound difference, carbon fiber being much lighter, 1/3 less the weight of the aluminum. So, and they go even higher, get up to 30 feet. that difference is going to be even greater. So definitely, if you're looking for a light pole, you're going to want to use a carbon fiber. As far as strength goes, aluminum poles do have a tendency to bend much easier, especially if you have the sections fully extended. Put a little bit of pressure when you're squeegeeing the glass, and these poles will bend. More often than not, even with the highest end Unger pole, when people come in for parts, once several times a year, I'll be asked for the top section or the top two sections of an Unger 30-foot pole because they do bend quite easily. Much more rigid dealing with carbon fiber, and you can feel that you can put a lot of pressure on there before any damage is going to be done to a tube section. So definitely carbon fiber, much stiffer than aluminum. Now, one benefit you'll hear a lot of window cleaners praise the trad poles for is the fact that they don't get so cold in the wintertime. With the aluminum, definitely it gets colder faster. Just having it in your truck overnight, in the late fall going into winter, and you pick up that pole in the morning to do some work, and already the pole is cold, and if you don't have gloves or you don't have thick gloves, that cold aluminum transfers over to your hands and makes for an uncomfortable situation. Not so much with the carbon fiber, it's not really going to get that cold. So a lot better for the winter time. It's basically what it comes down to. Another thing too is that with window cleaning poles, you quite often have water running down the pole as you're working with them. With the aluminum poles, they always use like a lock and collar kind of thing. What can happen is water can go in there and freeze on the grooves, on the teeth, the threads or whatever. And sometimes you can get that you can't quite tighten the collars properly because the ice buildup inside, and then the pole section slip. Yeah, so for section locks, locking mechanism, that is, when you extend each section, how do you lock it into place? We already mentioned about the collars. So most aluminum poles will use some kind of plastic collar brake system inside. So you have threads and a brake inside there. You tighten them up, and that holds the pole in place at the extended length. Whereas with the trad poles, you'll have lever clamps. So you open up the lever, you slide out the section, and close down the clamp. Now, obviously, in the wintertime, I talked about, water and ice buildup getting inside here can cause pole slippage. You can get a little bit of that too. It's not as prevalent, and it's easy enough to tighten the clamp lever dials to get it to clamp down a little bit better in that kind of situation. As far as replacement parts go, it's kind of like the point we talked about availability on when you're trying to buy a pole. Obviously, because you can source these poles a lot more readily available. The same thing goes with the parts, especially if you live in a town that has a window cleaning supply store or a good janitorial shop that has good sections of window cleaning tools. You'll find that they'll carry parts like the pole tips and the collars, the brake collars, and whatnot. Whereas, because you may have had to buy your carbon trad pole online, the same thing would happen if you need to buy replacement parts, especially things like clamps, clamp levers, and whatnot. So, that's something always to think about, especially when you're buying it. If you think or you anticipate maybe needing to buy replacement parts, you might want to buy some of them a little ahead of time, especially in the winter time, because winter time, if you're using it, that's usually the time when things kind of go wrong, because anytime plastics or aluminum or whatever gets cold and you drop the pole or whatever, accidents happen. And so going into winter, maybe you might think about getting a couple replacement parts already readily available. Now I want to talk about expanding the use of the pole. Now, these are trad poles. However, this pole pretty much stays a trad pole. Yeah, there are ways you can turn this into a water-fed pole if you really needed to. The Unger does have a tip that you could take this out, replace it with a Euro-threaded tip, and then you need a Euro-threaded angle adapter and brush and whatnot. So technically, I mean, you could, but it does have a closed end on the other end here. So if you're the type of person who likes to use a tube on the inside of the pole, It's not going to happen unless you drill it out. It's really kind of a hassle. Whereas with trad poles, almost all trad poles are made by the same manufacturers that are making the water-fed versions of them. So it's simply a case of opening up the top lever, taking out the trad tip, slipping in a a water-fed tip or a water-fed angle, a combination of some sort. Very easily to just take your pole over and turn it into a water-fed pole. Aluminum pole, not so much. There are ways, to DIY it, but certainly a lot easier with the carbon. Okay, so final words about aluminum versus carbon fiber trad poles. I would definitely say that if you're a single user, like single owner operator type of thing, and you've got the money for a trad pole, I would definitely spring for it. They are much more fun to work with. They're very, very much a pleasure to work with. Being that they're lighter, they're more rigid, you can get a little bit more precise with it when you're using it compared to aluminum. If you have a crew, maybe if you got like one or two employees, yeah, you might want to spring for a carbon trad pole. If you really like your employees. Otherwise, if you got like a larger crew, or you got guys who aren't really that careful, I don't really think it's worth the expense setting them all up with a bunch of carbon trad poles. Like I mentioned, these are cheaper. They're light. They're light enough. It's not going to kill anybody using an aluminum pole. Parts are usually quite easy to get. And, the last thing you want as a business owner is frustration. But if you want the creme de la creme, carbon trad pole is definitely the way to go. Anyway, I hope these points were helpful for you in making a buying decision. We have several brands here at the window cleaning store. And like I said, a couple weeks from now, I'm going to be doing a video on the new precision trad pole. It's got a little interesting, unique feature to it that sets it apart from some of the other trad poles out there. But anyway, stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.